this morning in Luke chapter 13. Chapter 13 is 8 chapters away from Holy Week, the last week of Jesus' life. There's a lot compacted into those 8 chapters. There is absolutely no consensus among Bible scholars the time span covered there. Some will say 3 to 4 weeks from chapter 13 until the last days of Christ's life. Some will say 6 months, even maybe as much as a year. Makes no difference. We're talking about the love that Christ had, the story that Christ was, and what it means to all of us. So between now and Easter, someone asked me if I was going to be preaching a series. And it's not a series that I am consciously thinking about. How do I relate this week to next week and that to the following week until we get to Easter Sunday? But it is related because all of the Scripture, all of the New Testament particularly, all of the Lenten season, which is man-made, is to remind us how very much Christ loves you and how much He loves me. This afternoon I'm doing a funeral for a lady that I've known for many, many years. And she told me about 3 weeks ago, I'm ready to go. I'm tired of fighting. It's time for me to meet Jesus. She knew how much He loved her. We know, by and large, how much He loves us, but we can never, ever forget it. Nor can we take it for granted, nor can we hold it within ourselves. We're to let it go. From Luke this morning, chapter 13, we hear these words. On that very day, some Pharisees came, saying to Him, "Get out and depart from here, for Herod wants to kill you." And He, Jesus, said to them, "You go and tell that fox, behold, I cast out demons, and perform cures today and tomorrow, and the third day I shall be perfected. Nevertheless, I must journey today and tomorrow and the day following, for it cannot be that a prophet should perish outside of Jerusalem. Oh, Jerusalem, Jerusalem, the one who kills the prophets and stones those who are sent to her. How often I wanted to gather your children together, as a hen gathers her brood under her wings, but you were not willing. See, your house is left to you desolate, and assuredly I say to you, you shall not see me until the time comes when you say, blessed is He who comes in the name of the Lord." The word of God for the people of God. Thanks be to God. Jerusalem wasn't far off now, regardless of how long it took from here over the next several chapters of the book of Luke. And it had been a long journey for Jesus and His followers through Galilee, through Samaria, through Judea. And it was a long, arduous journey of teaching and healing, of controversy about who and what Jesus was. And in that controversy came strong opposition. But as Jesus gets closer and closer to His goal, Jerusalem, the holy city, the destination for faithful Jews throughout history, suddenly there's this interruption. Some Pharisees, and I find it interesting that God uses the Pharisees in a way that's helpful in this instance. Some Pharisees give Jesus a warning. Did you hear it? They said, leave this place and go somewhere else. Herod wants to kill you. But Jesus had His eyes set. And Jesus would not be dissuaded. Or Christ had work to do. even though he's not received kindly, even though he is not welcomed. Hear him again. "O Jerusalem, Jerusalem, you who kills the prophets and stones those sent to you, how often I have longed to gather your children together, as a hen gathers her chicks under her wings. But you were not willing." Now, my intellect is on a much lower level than most people's. And I love the comics. And I love Peanuts. Because in Peanuts, you can find Peanuts the comic, not Peanuts that I make a mess with and leave on the floor of the shelves and Ann fusses at me. Peanuts the comics. Okay, because there's wisdom so frequently in Peanuts. And there's one of the cartoons that has been around forever. And in that first frame, you see Lucy standing next to a tree. And she looks up and she shouts to poor Linus, "Linus, what are you doing in that tree?" And Linus answers from the branches, "I'm looking for something." And then he adds, then he says, "Lucy, can you see Snoopy? We climbed up here together and I don't see him." Well, you know Lucy, she just stands there and looks like, "What an idiot you are." And unsympathetically, she shouts back up there, "Beagles cannot climb trees." And in the next frame, we see Snoopy falling out of the tree, splat, right on the ground underneath the tree. And there's this loud clunk. And Snoopy looks kind of woozy, and he says, "You're right." Then Lucy just lets Snoopy have it. "You stupid beagle," she says, "what are you doing, trying to climb around in a tree?" And Snoopy just looks at her, and his head is sober, and he is still spinning round and round. And Linus' voice from up in the tree says, "Lucy, don't yell at him. We're trying to find a strange creature in a nest up here." And Lucy crosses her arms like she's prone to do, and she just shakes her head and she says, "You're both crazy. Go ahead, knock yourselves out. I could care less." And she looks down and she says, "Beagles cannot climb trees." And then poor Snoopy, his head still hurts, and his eyes are still spinning round and round. And Snoopy says, "Well, rats, I was just really hoping for a hug." It's all Snoopy wanted. Snoopy had been hurt. Snoopy wanted a hug. And that's not the way Lucy responded. Has that ever happened to you? Has it ever happened to me? Ever felt that way when we hurt ourselves? Physically maybe, emotionally maybe, and someone near to us, someone that we think cares a lot for us and we care a lot about, a parent, a friend, one of our children, your pastor, gives us a lecture about how stupid we were, about how we made the wrong decision. And what do we say to ourselves? We say, "Rats, I was only hoping for a hug." There are times in our lives when what we need most is to know that somebody still cares about us. We need to know that somebody still loves us because we've already acted like a jerk, or we've already done something really dumb. We don't need a lecture at this point. Maybe we just need a hug. Just a hug. And so we encounter this insert, this snippet in the scripture this morning where Jesus says, "How often I have longed to gather your children together, as a hen gathers her chicks under her wings." Now that's, to me, it's an odd picture. That's what it is. Out of all the animals that God created, Jesus pulls out of this ark-like metaphor, the chicken. Tell me, what is remarkable about a chicken? Not very much, unless you're Colonel Sanders. Then it meant a whole lot to him. But there's nothing about a chicken terribly remarkable. Jesus could have chosen the powerful eagle there that we find in the book of Exodus, or he could have used the cunning leopard that roams throughout the pages of Hosea. How does Isaiah see God? He likens God to a lion. But a chicken? A chicken? Why? Why did Jesus choose a chicken for this story? Well, I read another story. Once upon a time, there was a barn, a big barn out in the country, and right next to the barn was a chicken house. And one evening, lightning hit that barn, and the barn burst into flames and immediately spread to the chicken house. The small volunteer fire department that was 2 miles down the road in that little hamlet was unable to get there in time. And both the barn and the chicken house burned all the way to the ground. And the next day, as the farmer was out poking around trying to assess his losses, he made this very interesting discovery. Poking through the charred remains, the ashes, the embers, some still smoking, he found underneath the blackened carcass of a dead mother chicken. And with his stick, he poked that dead carcass, and amazingly, when he moved it, he found underneath it 6 small baby chickens that had survived the fire. In the heat of that inferno, the mother chicken had clucked to those babies to get under her body and under her wings for protection. And she had burned, but she had given her life that her children might live. Now, when I read this, it was prefaced, rightly so, with the words, whether this once upon a time story is true or not, I can't say. But what that story points out is that Jesus' chicken metaphor that he uses is a whole lot more apt than we might first think. Now, I like the way the chicken behaves much better than I like the way Lucy does. And perhaps the contrast between the chicken and the compassion and Lucy and the total lack of compassion, lack of caring, is a good lesson for us to begin Lent with. Because like Lucy, I'm awfully quick, and I suspect we are awfully quick to open our mouths and give lectures. It's so easy for us good and righteous Christian people to judge and perhaps condemn other people for the silly mistakes that they make. And what compounds that is that we think sometimes that we're doing the right thing by giving them all of our good advice. I can hear me doing that. Can you hear you doing that? You shouldn't have done that. You should have known better. Now, you've made your own bed, you've got to lie in it, and so on. People need to be taught. People need good teaching. And Jesus teaches. But sometimes, especially after someone has made a really bad mistake, they need something other than a lesson. And they feel perhaps like Snoopy did. Remember what Snoopy said when he was lying there on the ground? Rats. Rats. I was really hoping for a hug. David Leninger is a minister and an author. He's written several books. And I use his illustrations a good deal. And he tells a story that I think is so poignant and so apropos for this morning's lesson and message. And he